Hey everyone, welcome to Past Lives and the Divine. I'm Gina, and this is the podcast where we enjoy the freeing conversations about past lives, the divine out there, the divine inside each and every one of us. And in today's episode, we're talking about astrology and self-care. I have Meredith McCowan from Earthling Astrology and Ashley Sondergaard from the Yoga Magic podcast here helping me understand the sign of Virgo. Virgo season is what the sun is moving into, but Virgo is something that we all have in us. So I never really identified with Virgo, to be honest. I didn't really know a whole lot about it. And I just kind of thought of it as like, I don't know, there's like an archetype of a person, I think. This person who is more responsible than me, more on time than me, more studious than me, more on the ball than me. And I think that's kind of what I always associated Virgo with. So it was interesting to see the connections that were correct and not correct, and to see how much Virgo that I actually have in my chart, in my life. So that's why I like these episodes, because we are all the signs, as Meredith always says. And so it's cool to see like how this stuff shows up in our life. And I like to think of it as not so much like I am not Virgo, and instead be like, how am I a Virgo? So I hope you enjoy this episode, resonate with some. Maybe it'll help you understand a certain part of you. But as always, in the show notes, you can find links to Meredith's stuff and Ashley's stuff. And you can also find a link to Channing Nicholas's website where you can download your free birth chart if that feels good to you. As always, you can visit pastlivesandthedivine.com just to learn more about me and my work and the things I do in all the past Lives and the Divine episodes here on this podcast. So that's pastlivesandthedivine.com. You can find out what I do. You can schedule a past life regression or a life between lives or a spirit guide session. You can learn about other events and things that I have coming up. And if you go to pastlivesandthedivine.com/subscribe, hop on that email list, especially if you're interested in things like hypnosis training or a membership that would include regular interactions with me and other people in this community. So I am just happy to share that information with you as it trickles in. I know that I'll be doing a membership and a hypnosis training in 2022. So make sure you're on that email list, because you'll always be the first one to know about the things that are going to happen and the things that you can sign up for. So I'm in the very early stages of planning that, but I would love to get you on the email list if that's something you're interested in. Then you can continue to learn more about that. Before we dive in today, one more thing. If you enjoy what you hear, make sure to head over to Apple Podcasts, click on the 5 stars, and maybe you can type in what it is that you enjoy about this podcast. I think it's always interesting to hear that. But then what is cool is that as other people are deciding, like, should I listen to this podcast? A lot of times, if you're like me, you scroll down and look at the reviews to be like, what do people say about this podcast? So if you do click the 5 stars, if you wouldn't mind typing in there, like maybe what you like about this podcast or what drew you in or something that kind of surprises you that you enjoy about the podcast, then that way other people can kind of listen in and see maybe you list your favorite episode or your favorite type of episode. That's a good way for some people to kind of get in, is just to follow, one episode at a time or a type of episode. Anyway, whether you do that or not, I'm so thankful you're here listening to me babble on, and I am so thankful that you all enjoy these conversations with Meredith and Ashley. It seems like as much as I do, frankly. All right. Are you ready? Gather around the fire for our conversation about astrology, self-care, and how Virgo energy relates to all of it. Welcome, Ashley and Meredith, for our Virgo conversation. I am I think just based on what you told me, Meredith, about the Virgo I have in my chart, I am way more Virgo than I think. I always think of Virgo as like this archetype of a person who is always more on time than me, more productive than me, more more charming than me. Like they're just like that person who's just like, oh, everything you do is just like so perfect.
It's perfection. They're the sign of perfection. So yeah, Virgos are perfect.
It's so wild that I have a little bit of that in me. I didn't even think I really did. So, okay, short intros, Meredith from Earthling Astrology and Ashley from the Yoga Magic podcast. If Ashley, you want to go first and tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Would love to. Thank you. Ladies, I'm Ashley Sondergaard. I am a yoga teacher. I'm a self-care coach, and I'm the host of the podcast Yoga Magic. And I love to use astrology to infuse self-care into my life, into my family's life, and to work with clients to make it really easy because there's so many different ways to self-care and it can get super overwhelming. And we're going to talk about decision fatigue as it relates to Virgo energy today. And I think that's kind of like how this all plays out. There's too many options, right?
Oh, I see that for sure. Totally.
And I am Meredith McCowan. I own Earthling Astrology in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. And I was just telling the girls before we hit record, I am a Capricorn, but I have more planets in Virgo than any other sign. So I want those listening to know that if you don't resonate with your sun sign, there's lots of reasons why you might not. But what I hear from people that have like moon sign Virgos and they have no clue before they come see me that they have Virgo in their chart, they'll walk in. I actually had a Libra, Gina, last week, like, I don't feel like a Libra. And I'm like, well, that's because you're a double Virgo. And then as I explain Virgo, I see like the eyes just get bigger and bigger and sparklier and sparklier. They're like, that makes so much sense. So those listening, astrology is a very complex topic. That's probably why I like it so much with 3 planets in Virgo. I've been on the pod numerous times before. So just a reminder of who I am and what I do, earthlingastrology.com.
Yes. And of course, all their links are linked below. So Meredith, kick it off. What does this sign mean?
Oh man. Okay. So Virgo, it is a mutable earth sign. And I really think Virgo is one of the harder signs to figure out. I think Scorpio's up there too. It's ruled by the planet Mercury. So a very busy sign, lots of algorithms constantly being crunched in Virgo's heads. They, again, they're the sign of perfection. They want to get like the details right, things just perfect. Virgo is also one of the worker bees of the zodiac. Some of the keywords for Virgo is they're analyzing, discerning, they're nitpicky about things, very efficient, productive, really into the details. And one of my jokes about Virgo is the Virgos can stay home on a Friday night and alphabetize and or color coordinate their spice rack. And that is fun. That is like party time for Virgo. And I don't know if, Gina, you feel like that in certain areas of your life. But yeah, the organization, the details, we need the Virgos because they get shit done. And they have their own system, which might not make sense to other people. So another example I use is like Virgos might have a certain way to load the dishwasher. And if you have roommates or you live with somebody, there's usually some Virgo type energy like rearranging the dishwasher. Like that's not where you put the dishes in, that kind of stuff. And the shadow side of this sign is a lot of nervous energy and self-criticism. Virgos, they are the most nitpicky sign of the zodiac. The negative self-talk can kind of get out of control with Virgos, and also the critical nature towards other people. So that's one thing Virgo really needs to keep an eye on, is that critical kind of stuff, and kind of let the details float away if they really don't matter that much. But I get it. I have 3 planets in Virgo, and my Virgo manifests in really wonky ways. So if I see a crooked picture on the wall, it's really not nails on a chalkboard for me. That kind of feeling energy. Mine really shows up in like spelling and grammar. I'm super psycho nitpicky about that. I read emails like 4 times before I send them. And if I look at Twitter, my brain starts to melt. Like I don't even know the language people speak anymore. So that's where my Virgo kind of shows up. Like I like spelling and grammar being just right. And Gina, before again we started recording, was asking about the houses. So let's see how this plays out, because Ashley, you don't have a ton of Virgo, but maybe I'll ask you a few questions just kind of based on where it falls in your chart. for example, my Virgo energy really lands in the 5th house of my chart, which is the creative part of the chart, like anything that, or how we express ourselves. So I'm super Virgo like in like business or what I put out there, how I conduct myself, how I write newsletters, anything that's my creation and I don't feel super like articulately creative, but I can make a really good spreadsheet and my emails are crazy organized. That's where mine kind of shows up, that Virgo energy. Where if someone had Virgo on the 4th house, that's like home part of the chart, like where you live. So they might be super psycho clean. I wish I was super psycho clean. My Virgo does not show up at my house. It shows up in my kind of expression of myself. And Gina, let's see, you have yours really, oh, sorry, I'm going to actually start. Gina, 11th house, which is like community, extended, friends, money made from career. Tell me, Gina, like where do you think your nitpicky Virgo type OCD-ness shows up in your life? Or is it just everywhere because you do have Jupiter at the 29th degree in Virgo? So that's just boom.
Okay, so hearing you talk, I'm not sure like where my Virgo-ness ends and where my anxiousness begins. It's kind of like all over, but just hearing you talk, it's like I do like a clean house. I was that roommate in college who like made a cleaning chart and made
you were that roommate? Oh, yes. I was the roommate that complained about that roommate. I was like, Tuesday you have to do this, and I'm like, oh, so funny, but it's so cute. I love it.
And it's really like it's that kind of stuff though is out of character for me, I think, and it's really driven because I don't get off on telling people what to do.
Right.
I don't know what that is, but when I think of the Virgo-ness though, is like, I hate how messy this place is so much that I'm going to be a type of person that I hate and I'm going to boss you around.
Well, you'll get this. You want the system. Like, okay, this house is a mess. Like, what is this system? How can we work together to like get this shit cleaned up?
Totally.
And that's tough. And just going to a planet example. So Jupiter for Gina. So Jupiter is the biggest planet in the solar system. Think about Jupiter in your chart, expanding whatever he touches. He's the big guy. So if you have Jupiter in any sign, you're going to feel that sign a lot. And Gina was born with Jupiter at 29 degrees Virgo. This is the last degree of a sign. It's called the anaretic degree. Like you can't get any more Virgo at 29 degrees. You've got the biggest planet in the solar system, like blowing shit up for you. So I'm wondering, Gina, is like Jupiter also represents like philosophy and belief system. You might be really discerning in what you decide to incorporate into your own philosophies, your own personal belief systems. You kind of like run those things through your Virgo filter. And I also have Jupiter in Virgo, just not at 29 degrees. So I do that too. I really like to study and learn about all belief systems, whether it's religion or politics or science or whatever. And then I use my own kind of intuition and discernment to figure out what feels right to me. That makes sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
What else? Oh, I wanted to actually mention the body parts that Virgo rules because I see this a lot. And I don't think I've been good about every sign and every body part, but Virgo rules like the stomach, the digestive system. So if you have a lot of Virgo energy in your chart, you might carry your stress in your stomach. I've talked to a lot of Virgos, at least historically, that had like ulcers or have like stomach stuff like the doctors can't figure out. That's where Virgos tend to store their nervous energy, which they're very, very prone to, especially with that like OCD kind of nitpicky stuff. So just an FYI on that. So yeah, I mean, I could talk a lot about how Virgo shows up in lives. I mean, it's not one of the most, like Leo was just like huge and, sparkly and glittery and stuff. And Virgo's more subdued, but I also think it's the easiest sign to make fun of. Virgo has a good sense of humor. And usually Virgos do. They're like, I know I'm nuts with this. It doesn't make any sense to anyone else, but I just need it this way. I need the dishwasher this way. I need the magazines perfectly fanned out on the table, like whatever it is for each Virgo. So very awesome.
That's basically like a daily conversation between me and Alex where he's
Is it
like,
really?
Why? Yeah. Like that's one of the reasons why we're a good match is like, he just laughs at it. But when he laughs at it, then I laugh at it. And it's then if something's annoying and creating resentment, it's like automatically
So
gone.
good to have a sense of humor about this stupid nitpicky stuff. So good. I think it's really
Oh,
healthy.
yeah.
Oh, and Virgo's also associated with health. Usually Virgos are more attracted to like the homeopathic essential oils, or like that earth energy shows up. Like they usually like something tangible, like the plants turning into medicine, or acupuncture, something physical. So I see a lot of Virgos drawn towards maybe alternative healthcare practices. There's plenty in the medical field as well, but I really see them drawn to incorporating other ways of healing, more homeopathic and natural. So I see that showing up a lot for Virgos as well. So yeah, one of the, again, Virgos, don't work too hard, don't work too much, and just stop beating yourself up. Just try. It's tough though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Gina, does
Totally.
that happen to you? Just beating yourself up for the
Yeah.
stupidest? Okay.
I don't anymore, but that
Good.
was like my whole wellness career was just, I was the worst manager to myself.
And then
Yeah. Oh, that is so
Ashley,
interesting.
not so much Virgo in your chart, but you're actually aligned. You got Virgo in the 6th, you got an asteroid in there. Like, Ashley, why don't you tell us a little bit before you talk about self-care? Do you notice that Virgo showing up in like your daily life? That's the 6th house for you.
You know, okay, so lately I've been doing, but can you remind me what sixth house is again, Meredith?
It's actually the Virgo part of the chart. So it's just the mundane daily tasks, like
It's
brushing
daily
your
routines.
teeth,
Yes.
washing the dishes. Like,
Okay.
it's not the most exciting house. Like the 5th house is the fun house, and the 6th house is like the boring house. Like we gotta get this stuff done just to like go about our lives.
Right. Okay. So what I've been doing lately, with just doing in my own study of astrology, is to study the opposite sign of a sign to figure out how they overlap and how they're different. And I thought about this first with Leo, because Leo is so like bold and bright and generous and wants to be seen, but there's like obviously there's a confidence to Leo, whereas the opposite sign of Leo, Aquarius, is confident in its own way, but it just doesn't want to be seen. So like there's these weird similarities between these two signs, and it's helping me understand signs so much deeper on like a very different level. So with Virgo, when I was thinking about Virgo and how it shows up for me, I feel like Virgo gets lost in the details. And I, in daily life, tend to get a little lost in like I get so into creating my plan for the day that I don't actually do my plan for the day.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like a list. I'm making a list of what I'm going to do, and I could spend hours making that list, and then I don't do the things I'm supposed to do. Whereas Pisces, opposite of Virgo, gets lost in like the lack of details, right? It's so fluid. There's no real clear space. The details aren't really there. So I'm finding that to be like interesting. It's like you can get lost in both of these areas. And if you have a lot of Virgo, it's more about like the planning for the actual thing, but not doing it, if that makes sense.
Interesting. And one other thing, Ashley, let me know if you've gotten this far, is where you look at the ruler of the sign and where it falls in your chart. So for example, Mercury rules Virgo, and there is some talk, or there was when I was learning astrology, whether Chiron was going to eventually be the ruler of Virgo. So there was debate going on. I haven't seen too much of it lately, and I do like Chiron with Virgo. But Mercury does officially rule Virgo. It also rules Gemini. And Ashley, you have Mercury in Cancer. So the ruler of Virgo, that nitpicky sign, is in a water sign. So the details can kind of get washed away, or you can get distracted with your emotions of that moment. So Mercury is kind of swimming for you and not super grounded in your birth chart.
That sounds about right.
Wow.
But I highly recommend, Ashley, that's awesome you're doing that. Study the opposite sign, because I always say every sign has an opposite sign. They are medicine for each other. I see a lot of couples marry the opposite sign, whether it's sun or moon or rising even. Sometimes medicine, as we know, tastes bad going down, but they are medicine for each other. They're yin-yang, balance, polarity. We live in a dual world, good, evil, yes, no, all of it. So it's balance. It's
not like good or bad. I think too, when I think about opposite sign, it's not like Pisces is good and Virgo is bad. They're just different. And even too, as you know, we approach full moons, that's like how I've been using that is like to really study. Last one, obviously we're having 2 full moons in Aquarius this month. How do I what does that feel like? What does a full moon in Aquarius feel like versus a full moon in Pisces or whatever?
Have you been journaling a lot about that?
I've just been talking about it.
Okay.
I have my like Gemini like coming out, just me just sharing on the pod and like doing lives about this thing. But yeah, like external processing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm starting to practice more what I preach. And I journal on the new moons and full moons, but then I kind of like forget about it. And I'm like, oh, I should go back. So I'll go back months or weeks later. I'm like, oh, that actually happened, or I actually made progress on that thing. So I completely forgot about writing it down and what I put down on paper.
Yes.
So yeah, another good practice to do with the new moon, full moon. Write some shit down and then reflect on it a couple months later.
So self-care wise,
yeah.
let me tell you kind of my thoughts on this.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I think about the positive expression of Virgo, I look at the time of the year it is. It's like back to school energy. And the positive back to school energy is so fun because it's like, you got your school supply list, you're getting your new backpack, you're like getting your haircut, you're going to the dentist, you're doing all these things. That's really good.
Get shit done. Yeah.
I loved that back to school energy. And like, it was kind of a little bit of a letdown when you actually started school, but like the planning process was so fun. Right. So that's like, to me, is the positive version, the positive expression of Virgo is really planning. It's getting into the details, it's excited, it's grounded. And it's just
Virgo loves lists. I forgot to say that they love lists.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes. Yep. Back to school list.
So the negative side of that is that, like I was saying earlier, where it becomes so detail oriented, so analytical that there tends to lose the bigger picture of this. And so when I think of how to help someone who's really embodying that Virgo energy on the more anxious side, where they're just like in their head, all of the details all the time, it's that they got to get some of it out of their head. It's making lists, getting things out of their head, avoiding that decision fatigue. So say a Virgo, like you get an idea, you're in meditation, you get an idea. Take a beat, write it down. If you can carry like a little notebook around with you, just to get it out of your head, like that's okay. There's this really amazing book. What is it? The Fair Play. And it's not really related to Virgo at all. It has nothing to do with that. It's about the weight of decision fatigue that we carry around, specifically as like the feminine caretaker, the mother of the house, is just like the little details that we just have to carry around. Like, okay, did everyone get their back to school shots? Have they done, gotten these, have we taken the garbage out? Like just dumb things that like take up legit space in our head. And when I meet a Virgo, I'm like, you don't have to carry that with you. Just get it out of your head. So writing stuff down, there's a couple tools if you don't want to carry like a little notebook that I like to recommend. I like the tool Notion, which is like, you can have an app on your phone, but you can also have in your computer and they sync up. It's just like a to-do list application. And then asana, or I think they say asana. I would say asana because that's the yoga word, but it's asana, is another one that's really great for, again, list building. So you can categorize it. Like a Virgo would love these tools very much so. And then, just getting stuff out of the head. You don't have to carry that. That's a lot. I think that's a very big load that someone doesn't have to hold in them all the time. If you can dish some of those things out to another person, again, that's what this book is about. Fair Play is like, have your partner do some of the flipping work. Like it's not just you. You don't have to do that. That's ideal. And then unrelated to decision fatigue, but more about going back to that health piece that you were talking about, Meredith, just like making holistic health a part of your routine, a part of your life. It's really that like it's like the well visit of the world versus like when you're sick. Virgos are going to love to create not a million, but like a plan to stay really healthy and be ahead of any illness. And it feels good to sit in that. So whether it's like, okay, I see my acupuncturist and I see my chiropractor and I go to the dentist, and like
the routine. Yeah.
They're so important.
Love the routine. Yep.
And they set you up for success, Virgo, and kind of lift some of that anxiety when things do go awry, and they still will. But the further you can get ahead any health challenges, the more set up for success that you are.
Love it.
I love that. Okay, so Ashley, based on what Meredith said earlier with like, if you like are heavy Virgo energy, I'm assuming when you say the self-care tips for Virgo, that's good for people who have anything in it, or I suppose it's good for anybody who like
identifies with that energy. Yeah. Everybody has Virgo in their birth chart somewhere. That's what I always like to emphasize. Like, it doesn't matter what sign you are. Everyone has a little bit of Virgo, and every sign inside of them. So it just might show up in different ways in your life.
Where I think it can get, so like Virgo sun, definitely there's that like analytical piece. Virgo moon, Meredith, you sort of mentioned this too. We start to introduce the perfectionist, the negative self-talk on the shadow side of Virgo when it's in your moon, and working to counterbalance that, positive affirmations, trying to truly be in nature and see the bigger picture more frequently rather than just the details. I think that's extremely helpful to a Virgo moon. Or really, again, anyone that has just a ton of Virgo in their chart, because it's heavier energy. It's kind of like Capricorn's just a lot.
Very
Virgo's
similar sign. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you have all that Meredith Virgo Capricorn.
I do. I'm like 50% of these signs. And I want to say one thing about Virgo moon before I forget. So I haven't talked about this probably a lot, but moon in the birth chart also symbolizes our own mother. Mm-hmm. So what I want to maybe throw out to the moms out there, or you have a Virgo moon in your chart, you could have been extra sensitive to what you interpreted as your mom's criticism, but it maybe wasn't. So maybe mom looked at you funny or didn't say something with the right inflection in her voice that you were expecting, and you viewed it as criticism where really it was not. So I see that a lot with Virgo moons, like, oh, my mom is so critical, I was never good enough. And I'm like, well, maybe, but maybe not, because that's just kind of the lens you're interpreting mom's energy through. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah.
Doesn't always show up. It depends on the whole chart. But if you have a kid with a Virgo moon, maybe just good thing to be aware of. They might take your behavior as criticism when really that's not what your intention is.
No pressure.
Yeah, that'd be a little tough to walk. But I mean, just conversation, conversation.
No, but it's so funny that this is coming up, because literally this weekend, Alex and I were talking about something. We were on a little road trip, and I started talking about, I don't know what we were talking about. And I thought, God, even these parents who do appear to be nailing it, like their kids are going to grow up and be like, you did this and that kind of hurts, or this. and I'm like, God, on top of it all, like, it really doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter what you do as a person and as a parent, but I was like, on top of it, like, this is a person with their own perspective, and like, what a practice in letting go, of showing up, doing your best, and letting go of the rest. I've had this conversation. Done. Yeah. I don't have kids, that's one of the many reasons I just like can't work that hard.
I have a good example of this, I think.
Crazy.
I've had this conversation too, and I remember being mad at my parents when I was a very responsible Capricorn, National Honor Society, high school kind of stuff. But my parents would always wait up for me when I was in high school, and I hated it. I was like, why do they wait up for me? Why don't they trust me? But then the flip side, I had friends were like, my parents never waited up for me. It's like they didn't even care about me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I never looked at it that way. So like you said, Gina, no matter what you do, the kids are gonna find something wrong or critical about the parents' behavior. So kind of fitting to Virgo energy.
Yeah, interesting.
I have a theory, you guys, on this, because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I think about this pretty 95% of the day. Like, how much?
God, I bet.
Yeah, I'm sure. This is mom guilt stuff.
I bow to you all.
I think the best thing that you can do as a parent, as somebody who's like, oh, I don't want to fuck them up, but like, it's probably inherent. Like, I know all the details. I know that between 0 and 7 is when their brains are conditioned and all the things. Best thing you can do is make sure your energy is right. It's full, it's vibrant. Make sure that you feel that you are your best self, because kids pick up on that like no.
Yeah, it's almost like the empath part of the kids' development is more louder than like the behavior, the actions. Kids will pick up, you can't fake around a kid. Like, they might not be conscious of parents having troubles or whatever they're soaking up, but that really sits in their body, I think. So I love that advice, Ashley. Like, you nailed that. That's awesome advice.
That I am I feel like always in these episodes, I shouldn't be hosting it because I'm just always like wheels turning, like, oh, like having all these moments.
There's a little
Anyway.
Jupiter in Virgo. I'm not good enough to host my own podcast. Like, come on. Sorry, just a little Virgo humor.
Oh my God, that is so funny. I know, but sometimes it's like, if I don't laugh about that stuff, I'll go nuts, right?
Right.
Like I would be I used to be so serious about everything. But yeah, anyway, okay. So a random question, or maybe it's not random, maybe we could tie it to Virgo, but something that has been coming up essentially since the pandemic began. I feel like I've been getting more and more people who are like, I'm on a path of awakening, or I wish I would have more of an awakening, or why is it happening now? I wish it happened sooner. My thought is always kind of like the same as when someone gets married, and I'm just like, buckle up. Like, it is only the beginning. Yes, it's good. Yes, it'll be worth it. But your enthusiasm tells me that you maybe have a misunderstanding. You don't just all of a sudden become psychic. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you do, but so my thought is like, what is awakening when you think about your path? Even if you can identify, like, I know Meredith, you like have the date, you know, of the big shift and stuff like that. And my thought is like, did you know it at that moment? Is that something you saw in hindsight? How did you feel about it? Did you know exactly? You know, I mean, I have those questions for both of you of like, what does it mean to you? What has it been like for you?
I love this conversation. And again, we could talk forever about it. So awakening, I wrote down some comments, and mine happened in 2012, 2013. It was not overnight. It was a series of emotions and events and experiences. But for me, my awakening was awakening to my own limiting beliefs and facing those. For example, at my old corporate job, I would log into my retirement account. I'm like, okay, 62, 63, I can retire. I was like, I have to make it till then. And that was like kind of a program thing. And I'm like, wait, do I have to work in this job for 30 more years that I'm awesome at because I have 2 planets in Capricorn and 3 in Virgo, but it's not feeding my soul. So I kind of woke up to my limiting beliefs and also my shadow side. When I started reading about Capricorn, and I was like, control freak? Like, and then I kind of reflected on my own behavior. I'm like, I was really controlling, or I was really chilly in that moment. So yeah, for me, awakening was awakening to my limiting beliefs, which I'm still making progress on, as we all are, and the shadow side of myself, the more unconscious behaviors that I was completely asleep to. Like I was just like a robot kind of going through the motions, and I kind of woke up and I started to like analyze, maybe Virgo, like discernment, my own behaviors, and like, where did that come from? Where did I learn that? Why am I doing that? Was that a program thing? Is that in my DNA? So yeah, that's kind of awakening in a nutshell to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm so interested in what you guys have to say.
Yeah. What about you, Ashley?
I'm remembering, I hadn't even thought of this. When you sent me this email the other day, I was like, no, I wasn't even thinking about it. And I'm remembering right now, I want to say it was the very first session that we did together. I said something, and in the moment, when I essentially like channeled it, when I said it out loud, I was like, oh, what? Why did I say that? I said, I think that I'm destined for something bigger. I think that I am special. Okay. I said this, and I was like, ew, like that's arrogant. Who says that? And you know what? We are all special. We are all destined for something bigger. And I needed that. I needed that like verbalization of this belief that we are so much bigger than these ridiculous earth suits that we're wearing, you know? So awakening to me is realizing that this is all a facade. I mean, truly, this is the matrix. We live in the matrix, and that like we are so much bigger. So what I'll put it into how it's affecting me right now, because sometimes when people say those things on podcasts or whatever, I'm just like, whoa, like I get it, but like it's hard to sometimes understand when someone what they're talking about. I've found that I dream really small. I just posted about this the other day. When I think about what I want to do with my career, with my podcast, or with, you know, my family and our goals for the future, it's like I'll set out a goal and I'm like, cool, this is so awesome. My husband is an amazing manifester. He dreams like so fucking big. It's so inspiring. And I think that's why he's done well in his life, is because he dreams huge. And he'll be like, what? That's a tiny dream. Let's add like 10 million to that. And that expands these dreams out. And I need someone like that to help me dream bigger and recognize that this is anything is possible when you're awake to the fact that this, again, is just a tiny tip of the iceberg of our life, of our existence. That being said, Eugenia had said, like, oh, get ready, buckle up. The challenges are that the more awake I have been, the more sensitive I've become, the more the lows feel pretty low.
Yes.
And I've talked about this very candidly.
Awakening is not comfortable usually. It is not easy.
Yeah.
It's not comfortable. You got to face some stuff.
And even in like a physical form, and this is where I've noticed it the most, is that when I don't take care of my physical body, so like alcohol is a good example. It doesn't do well in my body. I doesn't feel good. I feel awful. And that's gotten so much worse over time as I've been more spiritually awake, is that like, hey, you know what? This that you're putting into your body doesn't work for you. And I think it's kind of holding you back. That's just one example. But dreaming bigger is the vibe. Like, can we just do whatever we want in this life, you know?
Yeah. And awakening, like almost like we are creators. We are creators of our own universe, our own reality, and you're dreaming bigger now. Actually, you're working on that. You're working through your limited beliefs on what you can do and what you can dream about. And yeah, just kind of moving to we are unlimited. Our unlimited spiritual potential is just rich.
Yeah.
And how do we work through that? We were not taught what to do with this stuff in school, which maybe will change in the age of Aquarius going forward. But yeah, I think the age of Aquarius has a lot to do with this. This is awakening energy kind of moving into planet Earth. It's been intense, you guys, I'm sure in your practices too. But it's been so magic. And I've had a front row seat to it. And I think you guys have too. I've noticed like my awakening was 2012, 2013. And I feel like that was kind of round one of a lot of light workers and healers coming online. And there's another round coming online right now. It's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. It is so much fun to watch. And to watch these people have, I think of awakening as like just knowing, getting a sense that you're on like some sort of conscious path of evolution. Like you're taking responsibility for what's yours. You're, and understanding you got to let people be, you got all the things that like make us truly happy.
And what about awakening to like not being a victim? That was part of mine too. I spent like 30 years in kind of victim mentality. And I'm like, I flipped that switch. And I don't know if you guys, you've maybe been on that journey too in your life. I think, Ashley, you mentioned it during the cancer pod, you brought that up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Gina, I didn't mean to.
Oh, no, you're good. Yeah. And I just kind of, it's almost like, I guess this is something that I think of in certain situations when I have a lot of anxiety, because the same is true once. I don't know if I was always this sensitive. I have a hunch I was always this sensitive, but I was really good at pushing it down. And so me being on a conscious path of evolution, one of the things that I think of when I get really caught up, maybe this is a Virgo thing, in like the small things and feeling really anxious about like this certain situation, whatever it is, whether I'm in the situation or regretting it or dreading it, whatever. But I just go back to this thought of like really big picture. We're all just kind of like actors on a stage. Like we all came here to hopefully fulfill a role, may or may not go as planned. But at the end, we're all going to go back home. At the end of the night, we're all going back home. And so that helps me when I'm feeling, and I think that must be like the Virgo energy of it. But when I start to feel that inside of me, it's just easy to be like, okay, yeah, we're all just actors on a stage going back home.
Yeah, I think your South Node Aquarius plays in a lot to that feeling, because I feel it too. I can zoom out and kind of view life as a video game, or like I'm watching a movie at times. But your Virgo will help discern, what, or even what you put meaning to. And what, you really need to hang on to and what you can let go. So that discernment is really amplified for you, Gina. Like, what do I need to worry about in this moment? But Virgo energy, I mean, even a small detail can derail anything. So like if you go camping and you have all your food, but you forget the can opener, that's a Virgo detail that you needed to do. So again, we all need to incorporate Virgo energy, like what details matter and what don't. And a camping trip, and how do you apply that to real life in the big picture?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so a quick question, Meredith. I keep forgetting to ask you this, and Ashley, I'd be curious to know your point of view on this too. But okay, obviously, I believe in reincarnation or something like it, whether it's all happening at once or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But my thought is like when we think of the life between lives, when I think of that, that's the place where I picked the body, my parents, kind of like general location of where I was going to be born, that sort of thing. Do I also pick where planets are? And
I love this question. Yeah.
yeah, like how does that work? Like, am I picking that? Did I choose what day and time to be born as well?
So, I mean, short answer, nobody fucking knows.
Well, yeah.
Nobody. We can talk to a blue in the face, but we don't
That's
know.
the
But
foundational principle of this
yeah.
this podcast.
So
and
I
website.
started the last couple of weeks, especially talking to my husband. I have changed my language, and I view or I say things like, I like the idea. I love the idea that we pick our own birth chart, and our human ego brains cannot comprehend the vastness of our being. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty, after being hypnotized, I'm like, yes, our brains aren't doing what we really do in our real life. But I believe we do pick our chart. And I don't know what the I is, if it's higher self, if it's a soul, or who or what, or if it, I don't know. But I think I like the idea that we do. All the planets are here, and maybe it's done in a split second. There's no time on the other side, and it's just a thing. It's like the astrology of ourselves is our blueprint, is our divine imprint, and it always backs up, tarot, akashic, hypnosis. It's just like a tangible thing for it. But there is some kind of cosmic code, and I believe we're not just thrown into the chaos. We're not just thrown into the mix. There's order to it. There's meaning and there's purpose. So yeah, we have amnesia being here, but I like the idea that we pick our own birth charts. And there's some kind of, I don't know, I'm blanking on the word to use for it, but I don't know. What do you guys feel? Do you feel like it's possible? Do you like that idea?
Yeah, first of all, I love the language of, I love the idea that.
It resonates. Yeah, I love the idea,
totally.
But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody does. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So I kind of think of it when this question popped in my head. I was like, is it that I'm making the plan for my life and someone puts it in some sort of bowl and they're like, you need to be born on October 22nd, 1980 at this time? Or is it like, is there a different way to, I don't know. I just kind of thought of anytime I've been with a client in the life between lives, they all have a different experience with the body selection topic or the room. Okay. Yeah, like the rooms kind of look different, but they're all ethereal. They all have like unidentified, not Earth-like screens and stuff like that. So I just think it's interesting, I guess, kind of on like a imagination side to be like, yeah, what does this look like? And so one day I thought of like, oh, are they going to pick like their birthday?
I'll share one more thing, and this is anecdotal, but I've talked to a few psychics who have been in the room when women give birth, and they're able to see the soul or the energy or the imprint of the baby that's about to come out. And they see that energy wait, like the mom is ready, like, come on, get out of me. But they see that energy kind of hold up. And I've talked to psychics who believe there is something to that moment you take the first breath. So yeah, just another kind of psychic word of mouth kind of thing I've heard.
Yeah. Ashley, what about you?
I'm obsessed with this. Like, I haven't really thought about it, but so like in Kundalini yoga, there's a time that they believe that like the soul enters the body of a pregnant woman. I know there's like, in several belief structures, that's like, there's a time when baby enters the body. And I don't know. I like to think that like this whole like process of soul entering and then that decision to actually become earthbound there is some soul connection. There is some soul process. And even just in that, okay, like my south node is here, my north node is here. I have this to work on. There's like this weird choice that we get to make. And obviously we're choosing to be here on earth. We have made that as a soul. I like to believe that we have chosen to be here on earth, this earth school, because there is a level of specialness to it. Like to be a human there's some lessons. Again, it's that school. And so, yeah, I think we do really kind of choose that moment. We choose our parents, our highest self, in collaboration with our ancestors and the things that we're bringing in that are a part of our soul's evolution. It's all very much connected. Yeah. When those babies want to come out and they're not coming out, it's like, WTF, come on. But like now, I'm just like, Lily needed to be an Aries. I don't know.
Yeah.
She had to wait until like Pluto lined up with something specific.
Yeah, she was like perfect. Her rising sign was, it was critical. Yeah.
I love that you said Earth is a school too, because I like that idea. And I also like the idea that this is one of the hardest planets in the solar system. So if you are here, give yourself a pat on the back, because we all know this planet is not easy. And I also like the idea that everybody graduates from this school. Everybody graduates just at their own pace and in their own time with their own lessons, but everybody gets a party at the end.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah, Gina, I'm curious, like in your sessions, I'm sure you're not asking about astrology or birth charts, but have you gotten any like anecdotal or word of mouth reports about planets or cosmic alignments before they come in? And again, that's probably not part of your practice, but
no, not at all.
No, send me. Okay, interesting. I've never really seen it in a book either.
That is something I think about it. Every once in a while, someone will say something or they'll operate in a certain way. And I'm like, I wonder what their rising, moon, sun signs are.
Yeah. And there's tidbits in like Michael Newton's books and Dolores Cannon's about the planets, but it's not very concrete.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's nothing that has even come up in a training or anything like that. But just as I learn, I do think that would be interesting, especially in something I want to get into, like, as I continue just to learn more about astrology, is like the different planets and what they do or mean and wherever they are. So anyway.
Well, yeah. So I'll give you this, Gina. I'm a Capricorn and I have a really hard time being hypnotized. Like Capricorn's that control and there's that ego part of me that does not want to give up that control. And it's really hard for me to battle. And I'm going to share this. So the last time I was hypnotized was about 6 months ago. I had a session. And again, I really struggle with it. I think the water signs kind of like float right in, like they pass out. They probably don't remember their sessions. I remember my sessions and I was hypnotized and it was like my higher self or somebody was taking over. And this came out of my mouth. And it's just funny. I'm sure, Ashley, you listen to recordings too. You're like, what was I saying? I said to my practitioner, I said, hold on, I need to talk to the rooms. So like like when I do a psychedelic mushroom trip, it's like my ego is bound and gagged in the back of my brain somewhere, like Meredith is like trying to bust down the door. And when I was hypnotized, I said, hold on, I need to talk to the mushrooms. And I had that conversation in some plane of existence with the mushrooms. And I said, give me your wisdom. Meredith won't get out of the way. Tell me what to do. And after I had that conversation, which was not out loud, I was able to kind of settle in and go deeper. Isn't that wild? Like, it's so crazy. So whoever has not had a past life hypnosis session yet listening to this, do it, because you never know what's going to happen.
And you know what, too, Meredith? Like, I've never done like any psilocybin or any, I'm so intrigued by this whole world, but I've read recently that there's very much a belief that like mushrooms in general are a gift, like an alien gift that like to let us.
I love that idea.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
There's also an idea that mushrooms helped create the internet. So like fungus, it connects the whole world, and a lot of coders, they actually, they'll go online, they have their cocktail of psychedelics and it helps them code. It changes their brain. I'm like, ooh, did mushrooms create the internet? Then I go down, YouTube rabbit holes and it's game over. But we should do.
That's so crazy, you guys, that we're talking about this, because I'm in the middle of this book called The Immortality Key. And it's actually, have you read it, Meredith?
A long time ago. I should reread it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about basically psychedelics and how ancient religions kind of tie a lot of it together, like, oh, there's ancient statues of this in Egypt and in South America, and it's like, wait, they wouldn't have seen each other in those lifetimes. And people,
I haven't read that one. I just looked it up, but I've heard of it. I read Food of the Gods or something like that. I read that one, but I'm going to pick that up and order it as soon as we're done. Cool.
Yeah, I'm like halfway through it. It's really good.
Okay.
I'm interested in that. And I would even like to have more conversations about, Meredith, whether it was online or offline, but even just this idea of anytime I hear someone's psychedelic experience and it's like positive and spiritual, it sounds a lot like experiences I've had in hypnosis.
Well, even on the topic of awakening, I mean, a good percentage of people have their awakenings after struggling, and maybe the last resort was to try ayahuasca or mushrooms or a plant medicine of some sort. So many awakenings after that, because you if you have a crazy experience, there's no going back. You will question everything you've ever known about yourself and everything that happened to you. Yeah.
I feel similar to some of my experiences, and it's on my journey. I just don't know when it'll happen, but I know the right space and time will present itself. But Michael Pollan actually just released a second book about psychedelics.
I saw him talk. Oh. Yeah, I read his book and I saw him talk. He came to St. Paul like in 2019 or 2018, so I saw him. I love like when the mainstream scientist people, and there's more and more of them, challenge, the prohibition against plant medicines and how they've been used for history. So I love that. They're more and more getting legalized in safe settings. And I love that because they're so therapeutic. Not for everybody. Absolutely not for everybody. You got to be ready to sign up for something like that.
Yeah. Well, this was amazing as usual. Thank you too. Our next one is Libra, and we're thinking we're going to do something a little different. TBD.
I'm so excited. Yes, we might get together in person and go to dinner, and this will be a different episode, so it'll be fun. Yay.
Yeah, so we're going to see how we can do that. Maybe even video this thing. We'll see. All right, you all. Thank you so much. I'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for spreading the word. Every month I've seen really great growth. I'm getting really close to 100,000 downloads. And I know that's because of you all sharing the word with your friends, forwarding different episodes, and just clicking the 5 stars on Apple and leaving a review. It all helps for Apple and Spotify and all the places to show my podcast to more people if they're interested. And it all helps us find more of our similarly freaky people. So I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for being here. As always, take anything that feels good and just leave the rest.